Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Reading Light, the podcast shining a light on different book topics, subjects, ideas, concepts, the whole nine yards, you know how we are over here. Hello, welcome. I am testing out another new filming setup, so I hope this sounds okay, and I hope this works out okay. And I realize now I just called this a filming setup when it's a recording setup. At least I think that's what I said. I said something weird, and I didn't mean to say it. So, but I'm here for this little recording stuff, so it's a little bit of a different, we're working with some things. We're trying to figure out some things and get something down that doesn't feel horrendous or weird, because I'm still trying to adapt to this whole idea of, this podcast and everything and finding what works for me, and I want to upgrade at some point. I am kind of working with a very budgeted production here. It's just me running this, so it's a bit budgeted, as I said. But anyways, I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope your week had been well, and I hope your next week goes well, and then your weekend, because these come out on Friday. So hope you're all, everything's going pretty good. This week we are going to be talking about DNFing books. That sounds way more crazier when you call it that, but basically it's, of course, if you're in the book community, you totally understand, but it's you're just not finishing a book. Did not finish. DNF stands for did not finish. DNFing is like the weird verb for it, I guess I would consider it. Taking an anagram and turn it into a verb, right? That is an anagram, right? Wow, this is such a bad tangent. Oh my god, no, it's not called anagram. What is that called? Oh, abbreviation? Acronym. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry, it's not an anagram. It's an acronym. Wow. I do have my laptop in front of me whenever I do any of these episodes, so you will get me fact-checking myself like in real time like this, and that is just what happened here. So, whoopsies. So the acronym DNF stands for did not finish, or do not finish, or basically, essentially, you quit a book. You quit a book before you're done with it. So that's kind of what we're discussing today, and this came up for me because I recently DNF'd an audiobook. So I was like, I get in these weird, like, sort of habits, I want to say, or like expectations for myself, where I feel like I need to constantly be reading something, and if I don't have a book going, or I don't have some sort of like something going at a time, I feel like bad. Like I feel like I'm not a good reader, and so this ends up with me sometimes just finding books at random and just picking stuff out. And so recently I was going through which I think I have definitely mentioned on this podcast, that I was going through a crime mystery kind of phase. So naturally start going down the mystery route, and I'm realizing I do enjoy thriller mysteries with like everyday people going through, discovering things, finding the mystery and stuff, but I really enjoy like crime, cop stuff, kind of like that Law and Order in like book form thing. But at the time I had found a book and I was like, well, I'll give it a go, and it was some thriller mystery. Something about an apartment. You guys probably are hearing this and you'll know like maybe exactly what it is, but it was something about the apartment, moving to an apartment, weird stuff's happening. Kind of felt very Rosemary's Baby to me, but like not really. So I gave it a go. I tried giving it a go. I started the audiobook, and all of a sudden I'm like 15% of the way done with it. And I'm just like, who cares? Like my brain was not into it. I don't know. It was nothing with the author. It was nothing with the style of it. It was nothing with even like the narrator, because sometimes the narrator will get you on audiobooks, but it wasn't even that. It was just, I didn't want that anymore. My brain was just not in the mood for, I think, mainly an audiobook, but I also think I'm just kind of over, at least right now, that kind of subsection of thrillers and mysteries and such. So my brain was like, I can't do this. We can't do this. This might be torture to put us through. So I really wrestled with, I was like, well, do I finish it? Because I don't like not finishing books. That's the other thing. I'm really particular. I feel almost like a failure in a way if I don't finish a book. And I really just feel like I need to like just get through it and just like keep going. But I was really just not enjoying this, and I felt, you know what, maybe there's no shame in that. Maybe I should just abandon it and just give it up, give it back to the library, be like done. And so this got me kind of more thinking about like, well, where, you know, these feelings of not finishing or finishing a book and stuff, I don't know why it's so like pronounced for me. I don't know. It feels real personal sometimes, which is crazy. Like, that seems like crazy. Like, it's just a book. Like, and I see people online all the time are just like, you know, just finish the book or don't finish the book. Like, give up. Like, who cares? Read what you like and stuff. But I don't know. It gets a little bit more, I think, convoluted. And so this got me, I guess, ultimately, my thesis of this is it got me thinking about the idea of not finishing books, DNFing things. And it led me to make like a pros and cons list. Like, what I believe the pros and cons of this sort of action with books and stuff, like, because I think you can see it from both sides. And obviously this is not the most like pressing, like crazy issue in the book and writing community. Like, this is not, it's not anything, but I still felt like I had feelings about it, and I still want to talk about it. And so for this episode, I have my little pros and cons list. I know you guys are all probably sick of me with these damn lists. I promise more like narrative podcast episodes will be coming, but the list stuff is just easy because then I can like get my mind to like wrap around things and really kind of explore things, and I feel like keep on track better. But so anyways, we have a pros and cons list I'll be exploring, and then I figured we could jump back to our friend Reddit, which we explored in a previous episode. We could jump back to Reddit and see what other people think about DNFing. Like, how do they feel about not finishing books? And do they do it? Do they not? Why? And why do we kind of have all these, like, opinions about it? So I thought that could be a little bit fun. And, of course, I will link that thread and everything in the description, and I will not be reading, like, directly from it. It will be more... At least I hope not. I don't think I copied anything word for word. I kind of just took notes on people's responses and had some thoughts on it. So, I also, before we fully hop into the episode, I also do want to apologize if you hear the air conditioning going on and off. It's very hot here. It's very hot here still. At least, I guess I should say it's very hot as the time as I'm recording this. I imagine this, I think, is going up in like July sometime. So there's no sign of that hotness probably stopping, but at least right when I'm feeling this, we were just coming over a heat wave, and now it seems the heat wave has came back, and it's just been, it's been so frustrating in the Midwest, it feels, and of course, I feel for everyone in the rest. I think the Midwest and like the East Coast, and I think the South is all under like this weird like humidity heat kind of situation, which it's not too uncommon, but it's also getting to levels that it is a little bit more uncommon. But so that's why the air conditioning may be blasting, and because I need it for my own sanity. So I do apologize if any of the, my phone mic and all that picks it up or anything. So please bear with me. But anyways, we will be diving into this now. So let's start with our little, as I kind of explained how I got here, my DNFing. So like, what were the pros and cons that I came up with? And I'd love to also hear, do you guys have anything to add to this list at all? So, of course, I always want to hear from people. So, first up, I got the pros. We'll start with the pros, the good stuff. And this is kind of the stuff that I lent on to eventually just give up on the audiobook and everything. And I also feel like if you're borrowing a book from the library, like, there's no shame. There's no shame in being like, I can't do this. So, anyways, let's start with the pros. So, my first pro was that you're not wasting time with a book you aren't feeling. And I feel like that's probably like the number one kind of key pro to DNFing is like, you're not wasting your time. There's too many books out there. If you're not feeling it, get rid of it. So, and that kind of takes me into my next pro of just, you can just move on to something else, which I think it's very powerful that you can just, give it up, go over, move on to something else, I also feel like DNFing allows you to kind of fully understand what you do and don't like. I think if you don't give up a book and you force yourself to finish it, you maybe don't like it, but then you're like, well, I finished it and I like these elements, but I didn't like these elements, and these are what made me maybe want to like leave it aside, So, however, when you just are like, I can't stand this, get it out of here, well, then okay, well, I'm either not going to go back to that genre, I'm not going to go back to that author, I'm not going to go back to that, like, it's just the subject in general, like, I'm just, we're done there, and you can put, like, a formal, like, get it out of here, And I think it also helps with maybe feelings towards books. As I said, I had a weird relationship with the concept of not finishing books, and if you just start giving up on them, pushing them to the side, not coming back to them, they start to feel less like a marriage. Like, sometimes I feel like there's a lot of pressure too. When you pick a book, you gotta like stick with it. And obviously maybe my thoughts and ideas are way more deep than other people's are, and maybe you can relate to this too, but eventually you're just kind of like, I don't need this anymore, and it feels less serious. You can just give up on them. Hopefully when you start like not finishing books, it's a little weird, and I do recognize that. Like I said, I think too much seriously about it, and I think I overthink. I think that might stem from any anxieties or such that I'm projecting onto these inanimate objects in certain ways, but I do think, starting a book, I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm dedicating myself to this, and we're going to read it, and I hope it's good. And maybe that pressure just isn't, maybe you should just go into everything assuming it's going to be good. And then maybe it becomes good in a certain way. That sounds crazy. Gosh, I sound like a crazy person. Oh, sorry. Got a little water break here. That is what I'm sipping on today, and not another fun drink. I was going to have a Diet Coke, but I have been slacking with my water intake lately, it feels like. So I got to get that. We got to get that back up. Well, let's see. Okay, so those are my pros. I think those are pretty good pros. And I think definitely when we go through the Reddit thread, you'll definitely see a little bit more pros in that sort of thing, because it seems like people on Reddit are much chiller about it than me. But now, however, I did say this was pros and cons, so we do have to go through the cons. And one of my the cons I think of not finishing a book, and this is the one that I feel like I really like kind of hold on to, is this concept of what if? What if it was good? What if I didn't give it enough time? Where is, like, I guess the line? I remember when I was younger, my grandma used to say she'd read like the description of a book, and then she'd read a couple pages. And if you're hooked in and you want to keep going, you pick it up. But I don't know if that's like adequate enough, because like, what if chapter 1 is great and chapter 2 you're like, what the hell's going on? But then also, like, if you stop at 30% of the way in, what if it does get better? If you stop at 70% of the way in, well, you're almost to the end, you might as well keep going, maybe? Like, so I guess it is kind of like, where do you draw the line of like, okay, this is no longer good and I don't think anything's going to save it? Maybe that is just a natural feeling that comes with reading books and certain things and all that. But I personally struggle with that. I found it very easy in that audiobook that I had been listening to that I talked to you about, and it was, it was about 15% of the way in, and I just recognized my brain is not in it. I don't feel like I'm in it. I don't care about these characters. I want to get on to something else. I need to move on to something else, or else I might go crazy. It wasn't that extreme. That makes it sound worse than it was, but that kind of idea. I've also DNF'd a comic I had been reading. It was one of those like webtoon comics. I don't know if anyone's ever really explored those. Maybe I should do an episode on those. Those are kind of fun sometimes. I don't read them a ton anymore, but I was reading a webtoon comic, and I just found that, and this is one where you were able to like log it on Storygraph. So I guess it was like a bigger one kind of thing. But I just kept being unable to just go to it. Like, I'd always forget the webtoon app was there. I was never reading enough. And it was like 200 parts or something. It was a long thing. And eventually I was like, I have too much on my plate and I'm just not coming back to this. So I just had to move on. We just had to move on from there. So that was certainly not a case of what if it gets better, because I was into it when I was reading, but then I wouldn't remember it was there, and then I was like, well, maybe that's a sign that you just don't care, girl. So I don't know. Anyways, let's move on to my next con. I went off on a tangent there, but I guess this relates to my other one. My one con is I have to now go mark did not finish on Storygraph. And that could feel a little embarrassing, I must admit, because this is not, I don't think this is a thing on Goodreads. It wasn't a thing on Goodreads when I was using Goodreads, but it is a thing on Storygraph that when you go to like click and you can hit like currently reading or read, or want to read, and then there's a fourth option that just says did not finish, and you can like select that. It's kind of, kind of embarrassing, which also then brings me to my third con. It's kind of embarrassing to be like, I didn't finish it, which I don't know why, and I don't know why. I guess embarrassment, is definitely more rooted in like approval from other people. So it does feel weird to be like, I didn't finish it. And then you're like, well, does now everyone think I'm weird for not finishing it? What happened? So I don't know. Maybe I'm the one who thinks like that, actually. And maybe I am. And maybe that is a little bit weird. But it feels a little embarrassing. And I don't like clicking did not finish on Storygraph. All right, my second to last con, we're going to move on now, is I kind of feel like I failed in some sort of way. I think I've mentioned, maybe I brought that up too, and I was talking about this earlier, but it does kind of feel like, I failed to finish this book. Is that weird? I don't know. It feels like you kind of fail. You're kind of like, I just didn't do it. And I guess maybe that if I really want to try to break it down in like a psychological point, I am someone who has ADHD. And so a big part of it, maybe not big, but a part of it at least is I start things and then don't finish it. And that is a very frustrating thing to constantly live with because you want to keep doing something. It really sucks when you start doing something and you're like, this is so great. This is so much fun. I love how this is feeling me. And then you come back to it like a couple days later and you're not feeling that kind of enjoyment again. You get, at least I guess I won't speak for other people. At least I feel like it gets me a little bit upset to then I feel frustrated that my brain doesn't like this anymore. Even though I want to like it personally, my brain is just completely like, nope, we don't like this anymore. We don't want to do this anymore. And it's like, oh, darn. So that feels weird. So I guess not finishing books, is because finishing books is like my sort of, I finished it, kind of like that dopamine kind of thing. And to not have that really kind of sucks. That kind of sucks in a way, and you feel kind of defeated again. But I try not to let that bother me and stuff because I know I am capable of like finishing a book. So it's not the end of the world. But my last sort of con here is weird for people like me who talk about books and their reading habits online. Yeah, it is. It's weird. It's weird feeling to be like, I didn't finish it. And then to come on here and talk about books and stuff, and then to also have these not finished books that you have definitively said, no, I'm not finishing them, feels weird. I do wonder, maybe this could be a series of just me listing books I did not finish. Every now and then, if I'm like, as I'm going through my reading journey and stuff, if I find I got all these books accumulating that I was not finishing, I was just abandoning, maybe that could be a fun series and I could talk about that and talk about why. I'll give that a go. I'll try to keep in mind, and maybe this will help me really lock in to understand not finishing books and why I'm not doing it and so forth. So that's a good thought. So maybe I can turn this into content, not finishing books. You don't need to finish books to have content, apparently. Not as I'm thinking about it. All right. Well, there is my pros and cons list. It wasn't super convoluted as I thought, but the pros definitely won in many cases, I think. There is more cons, but I feel like the pros have a lot more substantial thoughts behind them. But I don't know. You let me know. What is your thoughts on this whole idea of not finishing books? Please. I keep saying that, but I am genuinely curious. But now, I do, as I mentioned, I want to go through another Reddit thread. I do love going to Reddit just to see. It helps me get a good range of people, I think, to, like, hear opinions from and stuff. Since it is sort of, it's not anonymous, but it is, like, it feels like it could just kind of be like that. So I'll link this thread. It is from someone that's about 3 years old, which I don't think is terrible. But the person just asked, do you DNF books? Do you not finish books? The OP said that they, I guess I don't know who she is, or they, wow. They are not capable of doing this. They feel like they just, they start it, and even if they don't seem to like it, they can't find it in them to not finish it. So they're asking everyone's thoughts, and they say they just want to give a book a chance and stuff, and hope that maybe it'll be better off later on, which kind of goes back, that makes me feel good, because that goes back to kind of my cons of what if it gets better? So let's see some of these responses. I noted quite a few, and I found some pretty interesting ones, I thought. But of course, the main one that people bring up is it's great to not finish books. Life is too short. And I feel like I tried to kind of keep that in mind as I was going through, like, my pros and cons. And I guess that is kind of like a big one of just, like, don't waste your time. Life's too short. Get rid of the books you don't like. This person also said that if it feels like a chore, done, which is good. I think that is important too. It's important definitely to remember that reading should be fun. Reading should be a cool hobby. Reading should not be pressure in any way. It should just be, that should be your relaxing time. And if it's starting to feel like a chore, if you're suddenly looking at your book being like, I don't want to pick this up again, I don't care, that is probably, that's probably a great time to say, never mind, I'm done. I'm done with this. So I found it interesting as well in this thread that some people say they set limits. So I guess this goes back to my thought of, like, when do you realize, like, it's not good? Some people say they give it a quarter of the way through before DNFing, but they definitely, they give themselves a limit of, and that's good. I'm glad other people have figured out where, like, they're comfortable being like, this is done. We're done here. Have fun. Some people said, too many books, so little time, give them up. That goes definitely back to the life is too short. So many books. There is so many books out there. There's so many different types of books out there. So if you're not vibing, personally, me, sometimes if I find myself, like, my brain is just not on board with novels, I will just, I'll switch the genre or format. Not so much, genre format. For my next book. So, like, right now I'm back into reading quite a bit of manga, and that is just because I am gravitating more towards that. I'm gravitating more towards the themes. I specifically like romance in that area, so I'm gravitating more towards that. This is the vibes of it, the characters, the dialogue and such. I am aligning myself more with that right now, so I'm going to switch to that. And the visual element too. I think that's another. It's okay to admit you enjoy more of, like, that graphic novel kind of style. So I'm moving towards that. And I'll get back to novels in a bit, but you will definitely see in my June wrap-up that it's, or you would have seen, as you can see, I'm recording this a little bit in advance, but you will have seen in my June wrap-up that it is a little, it is kind of, kind of divided on stuff, but I'll get back to it, and it just happens. It comes in waves, it fluctuates, and I think that's an important thing to recognize and to be okay with. Definitely giving yourself a chance to explore other things definitely I think helps. It gives you more variety too of like what you want to fall back on. Let's see. Next person said, they use the library more to kind of ease them into being okay with not finishing it, which I think is a great point too. If you did not buy the book, I don't feel like you should feel obligated to finish it. I think it's totally, if you got this from the library and you just don't like it, okay, just give it back to the library. And I think that's a great way to then sort of be like, to sort of pick up as much as you can and then just not finish it, or finish it if you want to. So I like that approach. I'm a, you know me in libraries. I'm a pretty big advocator for that sort of thing. So I definitely like that approach. This was a very interesting one, and maybe this kind of goes into my thoughts of tracking and stuff, but someone had said that they abandoned tracking reading habits to help them stop DNFing things, which I think is interesting, and maybe this isn't what they were going with when they sort of had this idea, but the way I would approach this is like, if I stop tracking it, because tracking, especially if you're like friends with people and stuff on like Goodreads, Storygraph, that whole thing, you are putting it out to them that I am starting this book. This is what I'm reading, and you're kind of like defining it as like, this is it. This is what I'm reading, and other people can see that and stuff. And I feel like sometimes there's a little bit of pressure to be like, to announce. You're like announcing to everyone, hello world, this is what I'm reading right now. And maybe that feels weird. I know I was getting a little bit like self-conscious because I do have some friends on Storygraph and everything, but I never really interact with a lot of people on there. It's not a big deal. But when I was in my my library science program, I was taking classes about library materials, obviously. Specifically, I was taking them for teens and then young, like, children. In this process, I was reading quite a bit of books, but I was reading a lot of, like, kids' books, at least for the children's one. The teens ones was much more chiller. It was more, like, YA and stuff, but for the kids' ones, I'm reading, like, children's books, and I still wanted to track them because these were still books I was finishing. They weren't, like, I know we had to read, like 30 picture books or something. It wasn't I wasn't tracking those, but other, like, littler kind of genres and such. It was a whole sort of thing. But I was like, well, should I track all this? It looks like I'm reading a bunch of kiddie books. Does that look weird? And then I'm like, you know what? Who cares? Who cares? Tracking is a way to show off what you're reading, build that community, get ideas from other people, give your opinions, definitely share your thoughts on books. But it should also just be for yourself too. I think it should just be a way for you personally to track what you're doing and to see, especially on like Storygraph, like charts and stuff and what you read, how fast you read, how many pages you're reading. Like, it should just be also just for you. So I do think abandoning tracking habits will, kind of, there could be a correlation with not finishing stuff. I don't know if I fully really grasp what this person was trying to say now that I kind of reread and reconsider what they are trying to say of abandoning tracking their reading habits and DNFing, but I do kind of see how those things can go hand in hand, and it can feels much chiller, I guess, too. But that being said, don't stop tracking stuff if it's, it is for you too. So one person said if they get, so this kind of goes back to some people setting limits, but if they get too far in, they have to finish it. I think I also brought this up too early in the episode of when is that stopping point, and I totally feel for this. Like, if you get too far in, you're just kind of like, damn. Which, that being said, I have DNF'd a book at like 75%, and it was genuinely because I just wanted to go read something else. Maybe that was bad. Maybe I could have just, here's my problem is I got it from the library, so there is like that time limit. I felt, I'm not one to renew books, especially if I know other people are waiting for it and everything. And I'm also not one to turn my Kindle on airplane mode to stop the book from being taken back. I try to read within the time limit that I borrowed the book for. I think it's very bizarre sometimes. I don't know. That's a whole nother issue, but I do not subscribe to that movement. So I did have like a limit on it, and I was like, I just want to give this up and I want to go read something else. So I did end up DNFing something that's like 75%. It wasn't very good to begin with, and I had kind of known that too. I did read like some reviews before diving into it, and everyone's saying, oh, the first book was better than the sequel. And unfortunately, I totally understand where everyone was coming from on that. So maybe that influenced me too and made me feel a little bit better about saying I didn't finish it, because I knew other people also either didn't finish it or were not happy after they finished it. So, but I still do believe, if you get too far in and you're still not liking it, well, I do feel like you just gotta power through. Or if you suddenly hit like chapter 30 and you're like, this is getting bad, I do understand that pressure to just keep going. So it is interesting to hear other people's kind of thoughts on this whole thing. And this kind of person, I think this kind of wraps into it too. With this person once said that they try to find positives to keep going, which I think is pretty good. I definitely feel that sometimes when I get into like a piece of media, I think I've spoken about this before, of like, I kind of need something I can like latch onto. Specifically, I'm definitely like a romance driven in my obtaining of media. That's just my personal preference. That's not me boiling anything down. I still enjoy everything else around it, but there is something that I can like latch onto. So if a piece of media is not good, but you can have that romantic relationship you're kind of rooting for, or those elements or those dynamics that you can kind of unpack and go through, it can really add to then, I think, the other parts of the story, or at least keep you going on and trying to finish it and stuff. And I also think this is a good attitude to have towards a book. I think it's really difficult when you'll see people online, especially like they what do they kind of do? Oh, they'll kind of just write off a book as all bad, which I don't think is fair. I think you should be able to keep the conversation nuanced. You can say that you, like, overall it wasn't the best, but, like, these elements worked here, or this worked here, or this style worked here, so I think it's also important to try to keep positives going just in general. So let's see. Come down here to a few other people's finishing for book clubs. Oh, this person will finish, like, mainly for book clubs, which I think that's kind of interesting. Which I get. Now, I guess I shouldn't call that interesting. But they'll force themselves to finish it for a book, if it is a part of a book club, because they feel weird if they are showing up to the book club being like, I didn't finish it, I didn't like it, which I understand that too. I would understand that. I would hate to be the person who, especially if everyone else liked it or found something redeeming about it, and you show up to the discussion about it and are like, I didn't even finish it, I didn't like it. That would definitely be like frustrating for everyone else in the book club, because it's like, well, now we can't, how do we talk about it when one person didn't completely finish it? I think if you are doing that, or you're doing like a buddy read or something, I think it's important to at least finish it. And if you didn't like it, definitely like just express that. That's a point of conversation to then talk about with the book club or with the person you're reading it to. Finish it and then rant about it. I think it's very important, if you tell people or someone else you're going to read a book, read it, because then you can express and stuff about it. And if you need more time, if you're like, I'm really slugging through this, well, communicate that too. I think that's very important too. So I definitely agree with this person. It is, try to finish it for a book club, because these people, people are relying on you and they want to talk about it and they want to hear if you hated it, but you've got to be able, I think, then to also back it up by being like, well, I finished it, but I hated this and XYZ and all that. So that's an interesting one. I appreciated this person who said they will DNF audiobooks. I don't know why that is kind of like funny to me. I don't know, because their comment was basically just like, DNF audiobooks? That's what I do. Oh, okay. That's I wish this person would have elaborated more, because they didn't really have much in their comment, but I would like to know what about that. Is it just, it doesn't feel like a real book? That would probably be me. I'd probably be like, this just feels like a podcast that I can just turn off and never come back to. Like, does it, who cares? That kind of mood. Well, DNF audiobooks. I think that's pretty funny. I do kind of like that idea. As you can see, I started this episode by basically being like, this is all happening because I DNF'd an audiobook. Yeah. I don't know why. I guess I do know why, but I think this is a really funny sentiment of just, yep, that is what I will do. That is what I will do. That's really funny. I like the one person who said they're pretty successful at picking books, so more power to you. You're not doing it. Also, this person really summarizes it. It's not that deep. It is not that deep. And to think I'm sitting here yip-yapping about it for 30 plus minutes, it is not that deep, but I do have thoughts on it, and that's why I'm yip-yapping about it. This person gives you the first 100 pages. That's pretty cool. Okay, that's fair. That's definitely fair. Yeah, a lot of people kind of seems like they try to set limits. I notice that's a common thing here. They'll try to set limits of after 100 pages or 50 pages, 30 pages, whatever. Some people just straight up say no, they just try to finish. They're like, whatever, I just try to finish. I respect that, definitely, wholeheartedly. I do. Yeah, a lot of people say I just force it. I don't know, so it is really kind of a mixed bag. It is really on, one side. Either you're like, no, life is too short, I really don't care. Or you're like, no, I finish it. Or I try to give it so much and then I'll say yes or no. Or I feel like I just got to commit to it and I'll try to commit to it. So that is really interesting. I did like one person who said also that they try not to DNF a book out of respect for the author. That is a very fascinating point, I think. Trying not to, you're trying to give the author like your full attention, and you recognize, I guess maybe that's also part of it. Is it's sometimes hard to really fully grasp, but someone sat down to write this book and they put this intention into it and they put these ideas and these concepts and they map this all out and they put it all together here. And now for you to just, I guess, give up after 30 pages, I guess can feel a little weird, maybe a little bit unfair. I can understand how, it's very kind of that person to try to respect the author and just power through. But I think it's no harm also. It's not being, I don't know, I don't think you're being that mean to the author if you don't like it, because I feel like for one person who doesn't like a book, there's probably 10 people who do like it, and hopefully, you just are someone who just wasn't for you, and that author maybe will have no idea, and they can just move on, and, it's whatever to them, but I can also understand, yeah, it's still, you want to give it your fair shake, because someone did put, hopefully, some effort into it. I mean, I know I've been hearing a lot about AI books written, authors writing via AI and stuff, but hopefully what you're reading has been fully, fleshed out by a human. So I can understand also wanting to try to give it that kind of respect and, I guess, sort of patience. That's the word. I wanted to say attention, but I think the word I was looking for is patience. So that's really interesting. I'm going to leave that on that note then, I think, of that idea of respect for authors. But that was mainly the thread. That it's a humongous thread. So, of course, like I said, it'll be linked. How many comments is there? 124. 124 comments. Not all of those are unique. Some of those I think are replies. Or maybe not. No, I think it's maybe some replies too. But it's a huge thread that I think everyone here has very interesting opinions and ideas. And the most recent comment on this is from like a year ago. So people will be coming back to this thread. So I think it's really interesting. Like I said, it's definitely linked in the description. If something happens and I'm asked to remove the link and it's gone, that is why. Know that it initially was there, but I do think this is also pretty easy to find with some Google searching or Reddit searching or whatever, but it'll be there. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was kind of a weird, to quote that one person, it's not that deep. It's not that deep. And yet I still have thoughts, and reading and books are a huge part of my life. And so I got some complicated thoughts with DNFing, and maybe you do too. Maybe you don't even realize it. So if that is you, definitely let me know. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. You can email me, whatever. Love to hear, love to discuss. Maybe I'll come back to this. Like I said, I think everything could always have a follow-up. You just never know. But anyways, I hope this was a sort of fun kind of conversation, or at least this was good background noise. If it wasn't a fun conversation and you don't care, this was at least something to just hear me yap about for a little bit. And I hope your kind of week goes well, and thank you for joining me. Thank you. I'm hoping these are getting more casual. I feel like I'm talking a little faster than maybe I should be, but I'm hoping these are becoming more casual. I'm hoping to maybe edit these a little bit less and have a more natural kind of just chit chat and stuff. So I hope I'm doing well on that. And of course, I guess if you also have feedback on that too, please let me know too. So it's all good. Thank you again for joining me. I hope you have a beautiful week, month, year, whatever, and keep reading on.